love about property investing is that it's an inefficient market. And what does that mean? It means that no two properties are identical. Unlike with shares, if you have 10,000 shares in a company, each share is absolutely identical and is 100% worth the same amount as what the other share is. And with property, no two properties are identical. So that leads opportunity for you to have a knowledge gap. You might know something about a market that other people don't, or you can buy an ugly property and convert that capital with a renovation into equity for yourself. And this session is all about renovation. It's how to take $1 and turn it into $2 or $3. We talk through the Oz property portfolio that we're building $150,000 of passive income and how we're using strategic renovations to build that. We have a secret weapon inside the portfolio. We've just purchased our 5th property and we are going to be utilizing some renovations on that as well. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, my name is Joe Tucker and together with Jeff Miles, we created the Level Up Property course and the Oz Property Investor community, which has over 80,000 investors. It is the largest in Australia. And each week we interview top property experts. And this session is all about just Jeff and I. We don't have a guest. It is us unpacking what we know about renovations throughout our wisdom of hundreds of property deals, not thousands just yet, hundreds of property purchases, making many equities in the renovation space. We share all our tips and trips and insights. So if you want anything like that, tune in, subscribe, do all of that kind of stuff. I am a little bit sick, so apologies for the audio is probably not going to be as good as it normally is. But let's rock and roll. Let's do it.
Actually unpack the different types of renovations that people can do. So I think for those new to renovation, because I sort of wanted to take people on the journey from the how you actually then the challenges with that, how you get to the 150K passive income or how it accelerates your journey to that through renovating. And this is one of the quicker ways I'm seeing a lot of some people do it right now. So for me, there's 2 types of renovations. You've got the cosmetic reno, which, and this is a type of cosmetic, but your cosmetic ugly duckling or your renovators to light, maybe not so much, but your ugly duckling is where you're simply sort of doing the bathroom or the kitchen, you're doing the reno, or you're doing the paint, carpet, all that sort of jazz. And what that to me gives people the opportunity to do, it may increase the value and the rent in particular because it's a more desirable property. But the challenge, and I found with this one is is the valuation on the end, because just because you're making the bathroom prettier, you're making it, the valuation may not sort of stack up. So it's still retaining let's say you buy a 3x1 or a 4x2, whichever one you're doing. You're then sort of saying, okay, great. Now this property still remains the same characteristics. You're most likely to increase the rent. So that's that one. Do you want to cover off the room conversion, which I think is where there's potentially a lot more juice from hitting that 150K passive income portfolio? And we'll say why, and then we'll talk to a bit more about the reno process. That's where I wanted to take this.
Yeah. The next one is adding a room. It is the easiest way to kind of do it, right? We've got a little cheat sheet that we are going to share towards the end of this, but at the top of the renovation pyramid, you can see impact score 10. What is it? Adding a bedroom or converting a living space with some walls. It has the lowest amount of budget, $6,000 on a $60,000 property, and it's got the highest impact. This is the best way to boost equity on a small budget. So this deal that we did, we could have just, if we were like trying to move fast and flip this deal, we wouldn't really need to do too much other than add the wall and a fresh paint. Not that we are into flipping or anything like that. We don't, it doesn't always stack up. But adding a wall will create the value through turning it from a 3-bed to a 4-bed. So your ideal opportunity is finding an area where there's a large disparity between a 2-bed to a 3-bed or a 3-bed to a 4-bed, so that you can then convert that capital and get a better discount. Get a little better uplift on your renovation. So that's another version of renovations.
if you're buying and we'll sort of talk to some of we're adding the room, it can work from a valuation perspective where you're actually literally just updating it on realestate.com, or I think it's CoreLogic. You jump in there, you update that. And then if you're doing a full valuation, yes, there may be a challenge with that. And that's one of the cons of doing that. If you're doing a desktop where it's based on the algorithm, yes, that is where there is some real opportunity. There's no guarantee it will always stack up. But yes, that's where you're essentially then sort of the bank, and that's where you start to also play the valuation game as well, which where that works really well, where you're keeping it, for example, is provided you have the borrowing capacity, that's where the frozen equity comes in. You start to say, okay, great, now I'm taking out up to the 80% that I'm allowed to or am able to based on the valuation. And that's where your investment savvy broker comes in to say, okay, great, now you've got an extra deposit to go and buy that next property, to leapfrog, keep leapfrogging. If you're selling it, adding that bedroom, I don't think it adds a whole lot of value, because yes, you could argue because you're taking away from another part of the house. So you do need to factor that in. You may disagree, Joe, but I think for me, if you are looking to sell, probably the bigger value is doing the cosmetics of the bathroom or the kitchen, appealing to the emotional owner occupier who's then like, oh, wow, this kitchen's amazing. Move in ready. Yeah. I can picture everything there. Yeah. So it depends on the purpose of the renovation.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where a lot of people get a little unstuck as well when they dive headfirst into their renovation project. They think, oh, I have to make it so that an owner occupier is comfortable in this. Well, no, the only person that you need to appease, like what Jeff was saying, is the valuer. So what does the valuer care about? The valuer cares about the structure and make of what that dwelling is. Now, Amit's asked a great question here. In the comments, and if anyone has any questions along the way, it is just Jeff and I, so it's great to not have a guest because it means that we can kind of engage a little bit more with everyone. So throw in your questions and comments and stuff and we can chat to it. But he says, do you need any council approval to do a 3 and 4 conversion? And the question is, it depends on the council, and it depends on the rules and regulations of that council, and also what type of 3 to 4 conversion that you're doing. We're going to talk a lot about 3 to 4 conversions, I guess, in this podcast, because it's the quickest way to make the most amount of, like, it's the cheapest and the best way to make a lot of money very fast. We've got some examples here. Like, here's another example, right? This property here. Let's go through what the old photos were. So this property was purchased for $590,000 in January 2024. So $595,000. Am I jumping the gun too? I feel like this is the fun part. So
no, that's all right. I've got some fun stuff as well.
Okay. We've all got fun stuff. So what would you do to add the value to this property? And the answer is, believe it or not, add a room. So in the comments, where would you guys, I'm going to bring up the floor plan here. Where would you guys add the bedroom for this property? You can say living room, living and dining, foyer. Please don't say foyer. Yeah, I imagine people are furiously typing it into the computer, but essentially...
This is an interesting one, though, Joe, because, like, you just have to make sure, because some of the requirements, it has to have a room to be called a bedroom, from my understanding, of course.
Very true.
So actually, that's what I always look at that and I say, and I just think, because living and dining, you're not really going to technically. But this is obviously obvious one. Well, living room.
That's such a great point, actually. So based on, now I should have done some research onto this, but I believe it needs to be, for building approval, it needs to be a minimum 2.5 by 2.5 meter square to be considered large enough to be considered a bedroom. It also needs ventilation in that case, and sunlight. So in that case, it needs to have a window. So if this door here wasn't, didn't let air in, then you wouldn't be able to do it. You also can't consider it a bedroom if it walks in on another bedroom. So if you decided to put a wall up here and turn this area into a bedroom, and you needed to access this bedroom to get into that bedroom, you can't call it a bedroom. It needs to be fully separated and sectioned off itself. It needs to have ventilation and natural sunlight to allow you to do that.
Yeah.
So
that's why for me,
Yeah.
the most obvious one's going to be the cutting off the corner of the only problem is you've got the covered patio there. So like, I suppose they just got their own little covered patio. But then, yeah,
Where's that
it's an
here?
interesting layout.
So what did we end up doing? Well, let's have a look. So these are they're the before photos.
Yep.
So this person did a $40,000 renovation. So can you see where the $40,000 was spent? It was spent on a new bathroom, right? So we'll go back to the floor plan to see where that opportunity was. And then I'll show you the bedroom here and how we got it. I don't think we actually show, I don't think there's a way. Yeah, okay, there you go. Boom. There's the bedroom there. So as you guys remember the floor plan, there was just an open space within here. There's no floor plan on here, is there?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go. Nah, that's a good.
All there was one wall here, and then a door, which then made this big enough. Now, this floor plan, I guess, wasn't accurate enough to give you, like, it wasn't like, we didn't need to. We thought we needed to fill this wall in, like based on the floor plan, and put the wall here, but it turns out you didn't need to. We then put the bathroom in there. So we took this from a 3-bed 1-bath to a 4-bed 2-bath. And the property got revalued at $790,000. So we bought it for $595. 1, 2, 3. New value $790,000. That was purchased 12 months ago. That is $195,000 worth of equity, or a 32% growth rate, which is compounded at 2.73% monthly growth rate by spending about $40,000 on it. That's
some of that
bananas.
Some of that would have been market driven growth, just to say,
definitely,
just to call it.
Definitely. But this market didn't have 30%. It didn't have 25% capital growth. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This is the power of doing these renovations, and nothing else changed. Nothing else changed in that property. We didn't paint it. We didn't put new flooring. Could we have upgraded the kitchen? Absolutely. So this is a little cheat sheet that you guys can use for renovation. So you can go out there and make a decision on if you want to renovate or not. You kind of need to turn it into an Excel spreadsheet so you can then calculate it. But essentially, adding a bedroom, it gives you the best impact score and only costs you about 1% of budget, so about $6,000. Kitchen, a full overhaul, will give you a big boost in value. An eight in value, and it'll cost you 3 times as much as a room add, but it's good. Same with bathrooms, right? About $15,000, 3% impact score 7. That needs to be 18. Interior paint, $12,000. This used to be like $7,000, $8,000. So trade prices are really jumping up there, and every single cost adds to your profit. It eats into your profit margin. So when this was $8,000, painting a house is absolutely fine. Doing flooring for $1,500, $2,000 was fine, but it's now $3,000, $3,000, $4,000. So it's very hard to do these massive full-scale renovations. So for me, the goal is sometimes, like what we've done is, well, I guess we did do a big, large renovation, but we bought it incredibly cheap. So we bought it for $530,000, and we had to spend money on it. Now, the fact that a property 9 doors up the road, which is a 4x2, I'd love you to show you the pictures, but then that gives away the location, and I don't want any more
somewhere in west of Melbourne.
So. West Melbourne. Yes. So four of them are in Victoria now, and then 1 is in Townsville. So yeah, sorry. What was my point in saying that? Yes, you're going to get renovations used to be this amazing thing where you could really, really push hard, but as the areas get more popular, exactly like what Jeff just showed there, the renovation starts to compress. People will pay for an ugly duckling more than what they would from a return. In a slower, softer market, there is a much bigger disparity. Why would I buy this thing if I need to spend $50,000 to renovate it? Whereas when it gets hot, people are like, oh shit, I'm going to have to buy this thing, spend 50 on it, but still it kind of stacks up, and then you'll only get, $1 to $1.20 back. So our deal, we'll get about $1.69. We'll put $1 in and we'll get about $1.69 back. Once it goes to $7.20, then we're fine, but it's not
Yeah.
it's technically not valued at 720 just yet.
The other challenge is, particularly if you need to get, if for whatever reason there needs to be a full evaluation that's sort of done on it. And the difference is, so just to talk through this, a desktop valuation is literally where it's punching numbers into the computer, and it bases it off the median to that particular asset type and area. So 4x2. If you can snag one of those through a favorable lender who matches your borrowing requirements, then fantastic. It's where you start to go into what they call either a curbside. Curbside's probably okay, where they literally just do some numbers from their car. The challenge will be where you go for a full valuation, where they literally inspect the property and they say, hang on a minute, that property down the road, yes, it's a 4x2. They've got an extra they've got X amount of features added onto it. You're not quite, and you might still be able to go okay, but that's where I see value in doing a full reno when you're looking to sell potentially. And you need to understand from a real estate agent if you are actually going to get it back, because doing a full renovation purely when you're going to keep it, it may not stack. So that's where, so you got to match the purpose for what you're looking to do with your property portfolio.
Yep. There's a great question that's come up here. Juicy one. Would you be able to build to $150,000 in passive income if you had a high capital, but low serviceability? Talking $60,000 with 2 kids low, but virtually $1 million in cash to buy anything, or is it too hard to do? What do you reckon, Jeff?
So from my broking experience, it's an understanding now trust. You'd have to understand what other debt was around. If you had, because even with where there's more creative lending, you still need to be able to show some serviceability for that initial trust purchase. And that's kind of what if with this type of scenario, there's a couple of ways you could go about it, I suppose. You could go down, if you didn't have too much, and this is not specifically a situation, not financial advice, speak to your broker, accountant, all that jazz. But if you did, let's assume you had no other debt. I'd say you probably could. You just have to be really disciplined in terms of, not disciplined, but you'd have to probably play in the 400 to 500K asset range. And I think you'd struggle doing this in Melbourne, for example, where the yields are a bit lower and the purchase prices. So you'd have to do it playing at that 400 to 500K, which if you bought in the trust scenario to preserve that borrowing capacity, yeah, you could do it. And then you'd have to stump up that 20% plus deposit. And then you just continue to buy in the trust. But just mindful that you need to have buffers in place. That if anything, I wouldn't be going out and spending that $1 million. I would probably keep, I'm very conservative, so I'd keep a couple $100,000 just as a buffer to make sure that, depending on what your lifestyle and expenses are. So possible, yes, but you just need to figure out what time frame as well. Like, the easiest way to do this would be, go and not go and get a job, but go and get an income that maybe is but 60K is a decent income. But that 80 to 90 starts to make that a lot more achievable as well.
Yeah.
So
and
achievable
is like another thing is like partner as well. When you partner up with people, it does open up a lot of borrowing capacity as well.
So many exciting things you can do. Yeah.
Like even just doing the math on, if you buy a $1 million asset that's returning a 6% yield, that's $60,000 a year. So you're not too far off that you're not too close to the book, that target, but yeah, it would take some creative financing around to be able to get it to build the portfolio. And then the other thing that I would be looking into as well is exploring. If this was me and I had $1 million cash, I would be looking into the development space as well.
So you're going to go
to
down
keep
the commercial
compounding
route.
that nest egg, because you could then buy a subdivision site for $650,000, and then split it and subdivide it, have your negative cash flow getting eaten away. So have, $100,000 for the negative cash flow buffer, and then, sell it, make 100, 200 grand, 300 grand, and then just keep flipping and cycling it that way.
The world
But that's
essentially is your
another story.
oyster, I suppose. Yeah. Because you could
Yeah.
then go down the path of you wouldn't necessarily even need to have the you could go a private sort of lending scenario, and you could just become a full-time potential developer, that if you mastered that development space with that sort of capital, yes, you could be able to sort of be buying properties at that sort of $800 to $900 to $1 million with your 40%. And yes, there's risk in that as well. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yep. Great question that's come up here. Are you converting a 311 into a 411 good from your experience, or better to try for a 422? Oh, that is a juicy one. What are your thoughts,
Definitely
Jeff?
the latter. Definitely the latter. Like
Yes.
I mean, if you can, because you're not always going to be able to, because the problem with us doing this content, is now that we're sort of letting a little bit of the cat out of the bag, because people start looking for this stuff now. It's kind of like when they started talking about those.
Stupid.
Sorry.
Yeah, stupid. Like, we do all these things. We tell people, oh my gosh, you need to go out there and do it. And then they go out there and do it. And then they soak up all the deals that have these things that is the arbitrage for us. And then we've got to get new arbitrage. So is there still an opportunity here? Absolutely. One thing to mention is, as well, on that 3-bed to 4, like make it a 3-bed one to a 4-bed one, is that it's also hard to value a 4x1 as opposed to a 4x2. So yeah, it's challenging. Like, the deal that Jeff and I for the Oz property portfolio we just bought is a 4x1, and it's definitely less desirable than the 4x2s. But we can convert a laundry into a 4x2 for $30,000. So we can spend $30,000. Does it make sense right now? Absolutely not. We're not going to do it. But you can eventually turn it from. Yeah. And the first deal that we did, the one that we were talking about, was a 3x2. So I would prefer every day of the week to get that extra bedroom, the extra bathroom, because it gives you, like, it costs 30, 50 grand to make one. And if it comes already, yeah, it's worthwhile.